Welcome to Migration Minded, the Dynamics 365 web series where we dig into important modernization considerations with Dynamics AX and Dynamics CRM experts to help support your cloud transformation thinking. My name is Tom Wisniewski. I'm a global product marketing manager for Dynamics 365. Today we're getting the developer's perspective on migrations, the cloud, and the future of Dynamics F&O with Adrià Ariste. A 3-year Microsoft MVP, Adrià has worked in the Dynamics space for 12 years and is currently a Dynamics F&O architect and developer in Madrid at Axazure. Hey, Adrià, thanks so much for joining us.
Hi, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Adrià, I really like to level set with folks and get their perspective on, when you're helping a customer move to the cloud, or when you're working through that type of project with someone, what are your top considerations for an organization or individuals?
So my first recommendation would be to forget about Dynamics AX. If you still are working with 2009 or the 2012 versions, forget about that. It's a product that has almost the same functionalities. So you can post invoices, you can receive products, you can do all that, but it's very different because right now Dynamics 365 is in the cloud. And if you've been working with AX for a long time, you've probably even seen the data center in your company, if you have it in your company. But it's something that it has to be managed from inside the company or your partner. And Dynamics 365 being in the cloud takes all of that from you. You don't need to think about managing the servers anymore. You don't need to think about backing up databases. That's done by Microsoft, and that's a good thing. Also, Dynamics 365 has a lot of advantages, and most of the customers will notice this between 3 to 6 months after the implementation. And you will forget about some of the old things that you did on Dynamics AX. And if you are a developer, you will forget about a lot of things. You don't have to do most of the things you have to do now because they are done by Microsoft. And especially updating the ERP to a newer version is much quicker, and it's actually done by Microsoft instead of having to apply a CU or a service pack and spend a week comparing objects in the IoT.
So you mentioned different functionality. What are some of the biggest changes between the on-prem version of AX and Dynamics 365?
So the most obvious is that Dynamics 365 is now a cloud ERP. It is not hosted on your on-premise data center. And this will allow you to focus on your work, forget about managing the databases, forget about checking if there's enough free space on the hard drives. All of that is done by Microsoft. There's a great feature, which is one of the ones I love the most, because as a developer, I didn't work with source control systems as intensive as now with Dynamics 365. Source control was possible to do in Dynamics AX 2009 and 2012 with Morph BCS, or in 2012 you could also use Team Foundation Server, TFS, but it was pretty hard to set up. Now, thanks to Azure DevOps, we can also automate deployments to sandbox environments, which are, for example, the test environments or pre-production environments. There's a feature on Azure DevOps called Azure Pipelines, that will get your code, create a deployable package, and apply this deployable package to the sandbox environment. Once this is done, you can validate the changes done and upload the deployable package to the production environment. If you remember how we did this on 2009 or 2012 with XPO projects or copying layers, it's much, much better because it's automatic and can be done overnight. There's another feature on Azure DevOps that's called the build pipelines. And thanks to that, you can implement a continuous integration strategy, which consists in after you check in your code with your changes, Azure DevOps will get your code and compile it. And in case there's any error, you will get an email and can check the code and fix the error. Only, of course, build errors. There's no runtime errors. It's even not possible to check that on a pipeline. And as I said, Azure DevOps for me is the best, but there's another feature which is great, is that Dynamics developers are not X++ developers anymore. We need to start thinking in Dynamics as a new product. Dynamics 365 is a new product because it's hosted on Azure, and Azure offers us a lot of tools that we can use to make our implementation successful.
That's great. Given that, so the functionality there, what would you say is what does the future of F&O look like in your opinion?
To me, the future is Dataverse and all the integrations between the ERP and CRM thanks to Dataverse. If you don't know Dataverse, it's a platform that Microsoft has built, and the CRM is built on top of Dataverse. And it's not only a database. Dataverse has also a set of security functionalities. You can store files on Dataverse. You have logging. There's a lot of tools. It's not only data. Thanks to, for example, dual write or virtual entities, we can start integrating the ERP and the CRM easier out of the box.
What are some of the scenarios when you take Dataverse and you add, say, Power Platform or Dynamics, where when you converge the products together?
So the best part of Dataverse is that it's making things easier and faster. If you have implemented the ERP or CRM in a customer that already had the other product, and when the moment of telling the customer, well, we need to build an additional integration between the two platforms, or you need to get new software to copy data or move data from the ERP to the CRM. So thanks to Dataverse, that's not, we don't need to do that anymore because we have some tools like dual write or virtual entities. Dual write is a tool that is set up on the ERP, on finance and operations, but the setup data and everything is hosted on Dataverse. And the tool allows the communication between the ERP and Dataverse without any third party. So there's a set of table mappings. You select, for example, the customers on the ERP side. You can create a customer on the ERP, and thanks to dual write, the customer will also be created on Dataverse, and vice versa. If you create a customer or an account in the CRM, it will appear near real time on the ERP. There's also virtual entities, which is something that already existed on CRM, and it's a way of showing data from external systems. In this case, the external system will be the ERP, but this gives the CRM or Power Platform developers a tool that they already know and will allow them to create, read, update, or delete data on the ERP.
That's great, Adrià. Thanks so much. I think what's really interesting is not only the to differentiate the two on-prem versus cloud products of Dynamics F&O, but once you add in the Dataverse and Power Platform alongside Dynamics 365, be it the ERP or CRM, all of the possibilities that are available to an organization. And as those products get closer together, there's just an innumerable amount of functionality that is available within the cloud that wouldn't be possible on premise. So I really appreciate the perspective, and thanks very much for joining us again. Is there anything else you'd like to sort of leave us with?
I would recommend everyone to take a look at the release notes that were published last January. So these are a set of features that will be rolled out during the year, starting in April. And there's a lot of features, new features for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations, but also for the Power Platform, customer engagement, all the products of the Dynamics 365 family. There's a lot of them. It's hard to keep the pace of all the things that are coming out from Microsoft, but it's worth to take a look at them.
Thanks for calling out the reminder on the release notes, Adrià. Appreciate that. This has been Migration Minded. If you have migration questions, join our Dynamics 365 migration community where you can connect with experts like Adrià there. Until next time, thanks so much for joining us.